Hello everyone, this is Shadow Dragon, finally recording from the test server. So Daybreak did fix that firewall error that we experienced Friday when they first went up with water powers. So thankfully I'm finally on. In the interest of time, I didn't actually create a new character for water. This is just a character I set up during the revamp when I thought I was going to get the gadgets. But I never actually did. So I just respect him for water. And I didn't change anything yet. So his stat points were set as hybrid because that's how I was going to test gadgets, and that's actually how I ended up with gadgets on the live server. And this is the initial setup that I'm probably going to start with any power that I'm not used to. It's going to be hybrid and then somewhat of an even split between precision and might, and I gave a little bit more to precision. But judging by what I'm hearing about water, I most likely have to switch that to superpowered, because so far what I've noticed, even though I use both powers and weapons a lot, for the powers where I'm chaining different tray items together, in a row, 3 to 4, I've found that super powered is the better focus. But we're going to try it hybrid first. And I haven't actually looked at the powers yet, so I'll do that now. Now this video is probably going to be long, so I will definitely divide it into chapters and put the timestamps below in the description so you can skip ahead. But this first segment is just going to be looking at all of the powers. And then I'm going to go over the process on how I initially choose which ones to put into the tray. Okay, so let's look at the water menu so we can see what you earn through progression of each level. So at level 1, or actually let's go before. So these are the standard ones, and then there's a water combo. Something called water combos. Tap or hold melee attack or ranged attack button after a corresponding combo ability to gain a bonus effect. Water abilities include Aquatic Arsenal, Ebb, and Tsunami Strikes. So I wonder if that's applying an effect, or if a combo power is considered one of those. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so the first power, Crashing Wave. Ride a wave blinding speed toward your target, dealing damage to it and nearby enemies. Crushes enemies, making them vulnerable to crushing effects. Okay, so the PI is crushing. So, let's see, this is hard to... Level 2, you get nothing. Okay, Aquatic Arsenal at level 3. Slash your target with hard water weaponry, dealing damage. And then that goes into a melee combo 4 times. So that's similar to a lot of the hard light weapon attacks that are kind of like reskins of weapons. And this is something that takes effect on the PI starter. So you would do Crashing Wave first, and then go into Aquatic Arsenal. Now this is probably the one-handed weapon that we saw in the live stream. Okay, third power, Soothing Mist. And this is a heal. Cover yourself and your least healthy group member with soothing water, healing them. If you are in high tide, soothing Mist's healing is increased. This effect removes high tide. Okay, so there's going to be something called high tide, at least in a healer stance. And this is the two-person heal, or the tank heal, basically, where it heals yourself and the least healthy member, which should be the tank. Most of the time. So these are typically expected as the starter powers. You have the PI starter, one move that works off of that, and then the most basic heal. Okay, water spouts. Summon a water spout at the feet of each nearby opponent, dealing damage to them and knocking them up. And it's another one that works off of the PI. So this looks like a ranged knockup. Sounds like a ranged knockup. Shark Frenzy. Create a large shark water construct and command it to attack your target. If you're in high tide, Shark Frenzy will deal critical damage, and then it removes high tide. Okay, so high tide seems to be in both stances. Maybe that's the cooldown thing that they were talking about. We have yet to see what starts high tide, though. Okay, level 10 you get the healer roll, and just like all other healer powers, it's 35% restoration just when you switch stance. Tranquil Pool, and this is a supercharged shield. If you're in high tide, Tranquil Pool also grants each group member bubble. This effect removes high tide. Okay, so that's just a supercharged group shielding. Bubble is the regular shield, and this is like the other powers, it's a 4-man shield. Shield yourself and up to 3 members. In damage roll, while inside bubble, your attacks have a chance to deal extra. So that works like a reflect, I guess. So water is taking a lot of good parts from other powers. Mending Wave. Cause a rejuvenating rush of water to wash over you and 3 injured group members. So it's another 4-man heal. If you're in high tide, Mending will critically heal. And it removes high tide. So high tide seems to be a pretty cool effect. And it seems like you could only use it once. And I'm not sure what the cooldown for that's going to be. There's probably a starter move for that, and then you could like hit it once. It seems like for DPS it would hit critical for some kind of attack, and then for healing it would hit critical for the critical heals. So that's something to consider for both stances. Depth Charge. Call forth a line of consecutive violent water bursts in front of you. Each charge explodes, dealing damage to enemies in the area. Crushed enemies take additional damage, so it's another PI interaction. Hard to imagine how that hits though, but we're going to test all of these. Tsunami Strikes. Strike out a series of open-fisted attacks, hitting your target and enemies near it with torrents of water, dealing damage. So this is a combo move. Up until now, I think this is only the second combo move. So there are probably several ways to play water. Tsunami Strike continues striking each enemy. Each strike from Tsunami strikes against your target reduces the current cooldown of high tide. So we still haven't gotten to what starts high tide. Okay, moving up to Whirlpool. 50% supercharge. Cause a vortex to form at your target's feet, pulling any enemies near them into the center, dealing damage to them over time. Okay. Definitely a DPS move. Supercharged generator. Okay, so this is likely the thing we have to try to get into the loadout. And I've tried hard to get the supercharged generator into all of my loadouts, although on some that really don't fit conceptually or into my style, I did omit them. So it's not required, but it's a big help when it's there. For water, the description is surround nearby opponents in water orbs, stunning them and dealing damage over time. This kind of sounds like the gadgets one, where you're entrapping them. Crushes enemies, making them vulnerable to crushing effects. So it's also a PI starter like all other supercharged generators. So this would be an alternative to the power you get at level 1. Okay, here's High Tide. Okay, so High Tide, summon the power of the deep, increasing the potency of some of your water abilities. Grants High Tide, allowing certain water abilities to gain additional effects. This is interesting because it's a second effect that you have to start up, aside from the PI. So I'm going to say this is one we're going to try to fit in. That's 2 slots taken if we're trying to get High Tide plus the supercharged generator. Pressurize. This is the weapon buff, typical to most powers. Pressurized water in your surrounding, granting you increased weapon damage. And of course, you would only pick it if you're speccing into weapons. Weapons are hybrid. Ebb. Pulling a wave of water which pulls enemies in front of you towards you, dealing damage. So this is a pull, it's a physical pull. Push enemies in front of you away, dealing them damage and knocking them down. That sounds very tanky to me, but other powers besides tanks also have pulls, which kind of doesn't go along with my personal playstyle for non-tanks. Okay, Blessing of the Depths. Quickly wash yourself and group members in mystical energy, healing them. If you're in High Tide, Blessing heals over time. Another 50% supercharged flood of power. Surround yourself in a large amount of water, granting you power and immunity to crowd control effects, shielding you from incoming damage and reducing your active water superpower cooldowns by a large amount. Dehydrate. Savagely rip the moisture out of your target's body. Damaging them removes all supercharge you have. Dealing bonus... Wait a second. Removes all of the supercharge you have, dealing bonus damage for each 2,500. Supercharge remove up to a cap. Oh, wow. That should be an interesting one to test. Because it's not counted as a supercharge, but it removes all supercharge. Not sure I like the sound of that one. Torrent. Use high pressure water jets to damage your target over time. Use a high pressure water jets. Okay, it should be use high pressure water jets to damage your target over time. If the target is below 35%, okay, so that's the finisher. Solace of the Sea. Create pool of healing water and aquatic life that heals you and your allies over time. So this is like Circle of Protection. And I think this is like that big circle with the jellyfish floating up. Riptide. Summon a current of power that removes the cooldown of previous water superpower you used. Okay, so this is not high tide, it's its own thing. Removes cooldowns of previous water superpowers. Oh wow. Okay, so this is the mechanic they were talking about that wipes out the cooldowns. This feels like another required one to me. Because okay, so what I'm imagining now is you're clipping the supercharged generator / PI starter with high tide, and then you're probably going to hit a PI interaction item, and then you're going to hit Riptide. Are we building our way to advanced mechanics here? That's 4 items already. And if you add in a supercharged choice, that's 5. But we'll get to play around with this. Okay, Aqualance. Form a trident of waters and smash it down on your target. So this is the thing that looks like that Green Lantern orbital strike, where it's like a water construct trident coming down. Tempest Guard. Summon a shield made of water to guard you from some incoming damage. And for healer roll, it's guarding everybody. Also guards up to 7 members with a shield that prevents some incoming damage. And then last power is a 100% supercharge. Call up a giant water construct sea monster in front of you. It breaches the water and closes its massive jaws on your opponents, dealing massive damage and stunning your opponents. Okay. Now, what order did they put the loadouts in? This is going to be a bit confusing. Now, you know what? I should go in... Let's go in the level order. So we'll have an idea of how to build this for somebody that's leveling up. Okay, so we want Crashing Wave, Arsenal, Soothing Mist, Water Spouts, Shark Frenzy, Tranquil Pool. I really hate that this is not in order. No, you know what? Let's go in this order. Whatever's here. It's probably gonna like screw it up. Let's see. Did it reorder them? Okay, so these match the 6 that I have. Okay, hopefully it doesn't screw it up when I pick the 7th one later. Alright, so we've got Soothing Mist. That's going to be the heal. Aquatic Arsenal. That's the weapon combo. So these aren't going to be in order, applying like the PI and stuff. We're just going to see what they look like, I guess. Soothing Mist, Aquatic Arsenal, Bubble, Depth Charge, Tempest Guard, and Blessing of the Depths. So this is what the heal looks like. Nothing really exciting, because we don't actually heal the target, the sparring target. Okay, the weapon combo. So it's one-handed. Okay, that looks like just 4 slashes. It doesn't have the 1H combos. Just 4 taps. And the bubble, just like any other shield. I think this is depth charge. Pretty long range move. And it looks like those skips as it's going to the target also do damage. Wait, let's check these sparring targets and see if it goes through like each row. Try to get a side view. Looks like it's hitting everybody at once. Yeah, the ones in the back are getting hit the same time as the ones in the front. Alright, so let's see, we've got Tempest Guard and Blessing of the Depths. Okay, so that's like a different looking shield. Kind of like a reskin of the one Circe has with the 3 spinning things. And that's a heal, so obviously we're not going to see anything. Alright, let's pick the next 6. High Tide. Okay, so far it's not screwing up the order. Aquatic Arsenal. We'll look at supercharges later. The Lance. Dehydrate. Torrent. Riptide. Oh, wait. Didn't come out of combat. Alright, so we're doing High Tide, Water Spouts, Aqualance. What did that do? Okay, so alright, so that's just a High Tide starter. Nothing special there. Water Spouts. It's another ranged AoE. Or actually it's mid-range. Because if you're too far it's not hitting. See, if I'm here it hits like... Nope, still missing. So that hits 2 of them. But if I'm right up here, it hits all of them. Alright, so that's a pretty sensitive one. Trident. Yeah, that looks just like the orbital. Hits multiple targets. Alright, let's see the range on it. Pretty long range. Alright, next up, Dehydrate, Torrent, and Riptide. So let's see. Dehydrate's like a range. that the one that drains supercharge? Removes all supercharge you have. So I have no supercharge right now. And it's still... I wonder if it does more damage. Well, I should probably test that later. Okay, what did that do? Summon current of water that removes... Oh, okay, so that's not going to do anything to these targets. Alright, let's get out of combat, and we'll look at the next 6. Okay, so we've got Shark Frenzy, Crashing Wave, Pressurize, Tsunami Strikes, Ebb and Drown. Okay, so Drown is the one we have to... That's the one we have to use to build Supercharge. Okay, the shark thing doesn't show visually if you're far away, but it's hitting. Or actually, it's not showing for me at all. But it's a ranged AoE. It's probably a reskin of like the Meteor or Ice Boulder Toss. And that looked like quantum tunneling. I think that was one of the first powers. Yeah, Crashing Wave. The weapon buff looks just like other weapon buffs. Now let's see if it clips. I guess that's okay. Okay, yeah, it does clip pretty well. Okay, so Tsunami Strikes, Ebb and Drowned. So this is Tsunami Strikes. Also long range. So water has some pretty good range options. This one kind of looks like the other one, where it's kind of skipping its way to the target. Let's see, are any of these combos that I'm missing? Oh, this one was a tap melee. That didn't look like it did anything. Oh wait, I hit the wrong power. Okay, so that's just 2 waves. 1, 2. Okay, that's pretty simple. Okay, so Tsunami Strikes has tap range twice. Oops, wrong move. Okay, that's pretty simple too. Okay, so water might not be a chaining thing. It's like if you hit a combo power, you're just going to like do the combo after. But I'm not sure if I'm necessarily going to chain it into another one. like I do with Celestial. Alright, so we just didn't see Mending Wave. Get out of combat. Yeah, this one we're not going to see anything because it's a heal. Okay, so playing around with the powers for a little bit, let me show you what I came up with. So basically I have, like a lot of these are set based on the description already. So I have the PI starter, and then there's the high tide mechanic. So those two are going to be starting moves, because you want to set the PI, and then high tide is going to buff certain powers. So that's sort of like a second PI. And then there's the thing that removes the cooldown of the last superpower you used. Riptide. So that's sort of like a third item, a third required item / mechanic. So just looking at those three, I'm only going to start the first two moves. So PI starter, high tide. Now look at the cooldowns. The high tide is significantly slower. So if you think that there's two starting moves, you could kind of start one or the other. However, if you're keeping in mind Riptide, you want that to remove the slower one. So the order in which it sounds like we should hit this. Of course, this is all theoretical and it needs a lot of testing, like in actual combat. But it seems like we hit the PI starter first, because that has the slower cooldown. Then we hit high tide, and then hit Riptide to immediately wipe the cooldown of high tide. And then I have two moves one move that uses high tide and two moves that interact on the PI. And then one supercharge. So what this looks like is weapon, PI starter, high tide, wipe the high tide, and then that interacts on the high tide. And both of those moves interact with the PI. Now, if I'm going to use powers a lot, I probably need something in there that's more of a spammer, because right now the two powers that interact on the PI are cooling down too slowly. So it's kind of an adjustment I have to make. But the way I have things picked, I would say this is probably most similar to Quantum, because with Quantum you have sort of a delayed thing with the time bomb. Like that still works the same way as before, where it's adding up all the damage after. So with Quantum you're sort of starting with two things as well. You're getting the PI starter and time bomb. So I guess high tide would sort of be like the time bomb thing. guess if I mix in enough weapon combos, the cooldown is probably okay. But if I continue stacking powers like that, this probably needs to be a superpower build and not hybrid. So this is definitely one way to do it. There are probably several directions you can take this, because there's like the combo powers that I didn't even use those in that loadout. But Aquatic Arsenal was one of them, and then there was that other one with the waves. But I think this is the one I'll start with. So I think I'll cut that off here for now. The point of that second part was just to show like the thinking behind all the different mechanics and how to get it all in there. So like if you're trying to jam everything in, you almost have like a fixed tray. Because you have like the 3 mechanic type things, the supercharge, and then you can kind of customize 2 things that interact with the PI. So it's a bit tight. Like pretty much, like if you try to follow that, that's only 2 customizable spots really. But you don't necessarily have to follow that, because if you're using powers that don't have the high tide in there, then you probably don't need high tide. And if you play in a way where you don't need to cool down high tide, you could remove that. So it's kind of cool because you can customize this to your playstyle. Like none of those are required. I just tried to jam everything in there to see what we come up with. And the thing is, it's probably a good start to try to jam all those mechanics in there, because it gives you sort of a framework. That way you're not you're overwhelmed by all those powers. It's just a good start, and then as you play, swap things in and out. Maybe swap out one of the mechanics. Alright, well, I'm going to practice a little bit with this. It'll probably be different the next time I shoot a video. But I hope this gives you an idea of what you want to use. Thanks for watching.